One, go.
What do you think? We good?
Yep, we're on.
All right. My co-pilot says we're on because I have made the mistake before. Hey, it's the Sustaniacs. We're back, and it is 2023. It's the second show, and we can say Happy New Year to Lori Asiala. See how I did that?
Yeah, you did that really well.
Yeah, well,
Laura. Not Lori.
we practiced though, right?
Yes, but you're right, Emma. It's Laura.
What did I say?
Lori.
Oh,
you were focusing so hard on getting that last name right.
I was so focused on not screwing up the last name.
And you did a beautiful job of that, Michael. I appreciate it.
I know, but I went to high school with Loris and Lauras, and man, they got mad when you confused the two because one put a heart over their I, and the other obviously did not. But back in the day. So, anyways, we got a great show here. So Laura is. Man, she's amazing. We try and educate people on plastics and really not even just plastics, sustainability and how to get involved with sustainability and how easy it is to start doing things, but how important it is to know what you're doing and move forward and try and learn and learn and learn and keep going, and how important it is for companies to let other people know and educate people on what they're doing, especially those that people think are the big, evil, nasty people like the chemical companies and the plastic companies. And Laura's actually in education. Emma, what do you think about that?
Oh, I love it. I'm so pro education. It's just absolutely crazy. So, Chief Sustainability Officer at Wholeworks, which is
not Whole Foods. Not Whole Foods.
Not Whole Foods. People. Laura, what in your words is Whole Foods?
The grocery store
is
chain.
A delicious place to go after work. Actually, I used to live around the corner from one. I loved it because I could go and buy dinner on my way home. Wholeworks is a company that is dedicated to helping companies accelerate their ability to integrate sustainability into the very fabric of the work. We work with small companies and we work with major companies. But you mentioned plastics, Michael. And so one of the things that I thought you might be interested in knowing is that I worked in the specialty chemical industry for 30 years.
I know that. I've been stalking you on LinkedIn for 30 years. No, just for like 30 today.
Years. Yes, because you started in kindergarten. I know. And so I spent 30 years working in a multinational, highly integrated company that generated the kinds of materials on which our lives are based on. And how is it that we can take the benefit of the science that's behind that and use it in a way that is sustainable, and because that improves the lives and livelihoods of billions of people around the world. And so I've pretty much spent my life saying, how is it that we can do that in a way that is adding value to society, protecting our environment, and including people all over the world? That's the critical part to me about sustainability. It is about environmental sustainability. It is also about social sustainability. And it is about how we operate within our society and within our economy. And we cannot have a sustainable world unless we have a sustainable economy. We cannot have a sustainable economy without sustainable business.
I love how you say that, because like, if you think about it, sustainability really is such a broad term. I mean, by itself, it doesn't necessarily mean eco-friendly. Like, now it has connotations that it is, but honestly, the word sustainability just means literally able to be sustained. So.
Exactly. Well, you know what? You can go back to the original Brundtland Commission report, 1987, right? Which was the needs of the people today are able to be met without compromising the ability of people in future generations to meet their needs. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it is that simple and that difficult. None of this is easy.
It's a simple concept that is really hard to get done. A lot of that is confusion, and people don't understand exactly how to implement it and be sustainable in their music, right? I mean, or in their business, right? Because I hear from a lot of people. We even had a guest on here who sadly was correct when he said that, businesses don't see it as the ability to do it because they can't increase the value of the business to their shareholders and be
Well,
sustainable in many places. And I contend that's mostly ignorance, no?
well, yes, it is. And I just want to get back to the point of it's difficult to do, just really necessary.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that because one of the things that we're really committed to in Wholeworks is how do we do business sustainably? How do we deploy capital to the most sustainable technologies and businesses and business
Mm,
models? And,
mm.
I don't want to say everybody wins because guess what? Everybody doesn't win
No.
there. So, so you have to be careful. But your point about you can't deliver shareholder value, that is patently false. In fact, I'm just trying to think. I just saw a LinkedIn post and I shared it on 13 studies, a baker's
Was it
dozen of
mine?
studies. It wasn't, I'm sorry, but it was
Rats.
a baker's dozen of studies that had shown where companies that were paying attention to environmental, social, and governance or ESG issues were in fact higher producers of value than companies who were not. Now, the key there is,
Let me just, can I add just
yes,
something to that?
yeah,
Because the
sure.
reason I asked you is I just posted today on a survey that was done by Ernst & Young, which is not Ernst &
Okay,
Young anymore. It's just EY, right?
right.
But we all know them as Ernst & Young. Yeah. I mean, people have been around for more than like a couple of years. So they did 535 across the Americas. It was like
Mhm.
Argentina, Brazil, Latin America, and then North America, right? In all kinds of different, food, retail, CPG, all kinds of
Mhm.
stuff,
Mhm.
chemicals, healthcare, everything. 51% of them responded that with their ESG investments, they had seen improved profitability and growth in shareholder value.
And that is because when companies pay attention to the material ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues that impact their business, they are already integrating sustainability into a way that makes their business sustainable.
Yeah.
Yes, more environmentally friendly. Yes, more socially just or socially inclusive. But that also means that they are able to return on investment that's greater than or equal to what their shareholders expect. And that's how you create wealth.
I love
You
it.
can bring those three things together.
I love it.
And there's a lot of I don't know, consternation now, a lot of politicalization there. Tough for me to say that around ESG and
I
around
still can't
being
say it. I'm practicing
quote
it in my head and I
unquote
still can't say it.
woke, right? So
Yeah.
like what's
Yeah.
the opposite of woke? Sleeping? No, thank you. I don't want anybody
Good
that's
point.
that's taking my investment and sleeping at the wheel. I want them to absolutely be woke to the issues that are going to impact their business and their ability to return.
Yeah, I think woke is a bad term just considering what you're woke to, right? To certain people. And I mean, what are you woke to, I guess is what it is. I love everything that you're talking about. I can't wait to dig in deeper and deeper and
Great.
deeper. But you're a young lady from Elk Rapids, Michigan,
Elk Rapids, Michigan, which is
which
where
is
I
like a
grew up.
thriving
I
metropolis. I
was
mean, it's
wondering
like
where the accent was from, actually. I love
Squarely in the Midwest.
it.
do people from Traverse City even know where Elk Rapids is?
Yes, they do. Yes,
Okay,
they
all right,
do.
all right.
Emma, do you know where Traverse City is?
No, I've been to Michigan only one single time.
Okay,
Well,
so
Michigan is a beautiful, beautiful state
We
thank
really
you,
like,
outside.
Michael.
we
Yeah,
enjoy it.
outside of Greektown. Greektown is a great fun time in Detroit, but it's not beautiful. Once you leave go to dinner in Greektown and go anywhere else in the state.
Well, if you look at the back of your left hand, that's a reasonable approximation of the lower peninsula of the state of Michigan. It looks like a mitten, right? And if you look at where your little finger breaks off from the other fingers, you could look at that on a Michigan map, and that is the Leelanau Peninsula. And that Leelanau Peninsula on Lake Michigan is created by the twin Grand Traverse Bays. Traverse City is at the base of the bays. Elk Rapids is about 20 miles north on the east side of the East Grand Traverse Bay.
Yeah,
So you're up
gorgeous.
there.
So I'm
It's
up
gorgeous.
He's up there.
So, summer, winter, doesn't matter. Go up there. It's beautiful. Skiing or sailing or whatever is beautiful. My father was from nearish there, Boyne Mountain.
there.
But anyways, it's beautiful up there. Mackinac Island, even going up to the UP and all that. You can't beat it.
Well, and the
So how
very
does the girl
famous
from Elk Rapids? Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, the very famous Sleeping Bear sand dunes are the big sand dunes on the big beach on the
Oh, yeah,
Leelanau
yeah.
Peninsula. So those
Yeah,
are cool.
I thought you were going to say Somewhere in Time was filmed.
No, that's Mackinac Island. So
Yeah,
but you're
yeah,
right.
that's what I thought. That's what you're going to bring up. But yeah, Christopher Reeves, the old movie, I loved it. Anyways, yeah, because I like romantic movies. Actually, one of my favorites is it's not really romantic, but it's My Fair Lady, right? I love musicals and stuff. It's one of my favorite ones.
It's awesome.
Funny, I watched that and I was like, no, I'm good.
I also listen to the Transplants. So I mean, I'm really messed up. But how does someone like you from Elk Rapids go to Dow Chemical, pollute the entire planet, and then educate people how to?
Well, we didn't do that second thing that you just talked about.
I know. I'm saying that. I say that tongue in cheek because that's what people think is going on out there with a lot of these.
Well, so there's, I don't want to make it sound like there is, a blemish-free reputation for that organization, with whom I want to say, because I think it's important to be clear that I worked for the Dow Corning Corporation, which is now part of Dow Incorporated. When I worked for Dow Corning, it was a separate standalone joint venture of the organization.
Was that fiberglass and that type of stuff, roofing materials, Toledo, Ohio area, that company? Is that what you're talking about?
No, actually, Dow Corning was the leading manufacturer of silicone products.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm all over the map.
Yes, that's okay.
I'm just going to be quiet and let you talk.
Especially chemical. But what I want to say is, I want to insert here, of course, I don't speak for Dow. I worked for Dow Corning for 30 years. But I have a lot of experience in specialty chemicals, and that informs the work that I do on sustainability today. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out, because I just mentioned it, is that Dow is actually one of the most sustainable companies in the world. If you want to take a look, they're in their third set of 10-year sustainability goals. They are one of the most transparent companies in the world. Do they produce single-use plastics? Yes, you do. Yes, they do. And they are also leading the charge to say, what can we do to make that a circular economy? Why? Because plastics are a very useful man-made polymer. They actually make possible a lot of the way we enjoy our lives today. So I really appreciate the fact that they're continuing to work on that. And in fact, in the program that I facilitate, it's really interesting to see how many R&D chemists Dow has sent to our program. And one of the things that they're working on is developing the technology to make that more circular. But you asked me how I got there. So I got there by I went to Alma College. I majored in economics. When I majored in economics at Alma College, there was a guy that was the treasurer at the Dow Corning Corporation, and he came to interview students. And I was on my way upstairs, and a professor stopped me, and he said, so-and-so from Dow Corning is here today. He's going to be interviewing our top students. I really want you to be there. And I said, I've already accepted a position from another company. And he said, maybe you didn't hear me. I think you're still taking my finance class. And I said, yes. And he said, I want you to be in the interview. And so I went to the interview, and I was totally blown away by the company, by the culture. And I was really happy to accept a position there. And I worked there for almost 30 years.
Yeah, I saw that. 30 years is that's great.
Impressive.
Yeah. And not unusual, by the way. And it was a great company to work in and for. And it was a great industry. It was a great experience. And during that time, I had the opportunity to really plumb the depths of different aspects of a multinational manufacturing company. I worked in finance. I traded foreign currency. I developed business processes. I worked in marketing. I did distribution sales. I worked in HR. I did learning and development. I actually was part of the team to develop a strategic leadership development program, which is where I met my now partner, Matt Mayberry from Wholeworks, because he was the person that we hired to create that program. And we I went through there, and I actually retired from the program, or retired from Dow Corning as the director of corporate citizenship, and I had been the director of corporate communications. So under my leadership, we really developed the corporate citizenship. So think about that as the social aspect of sustainability. So at that time, we called it corporate social responsibility. We developed programs all over the world. And one of the things that we had done, and this is how I got then to Pixera Global, was we had read Stuart Hart's book, Capitalism at the Crossroads. And if any of your listeners have not yet read Stuart Hart's Capitalism at the Crossroads, it is a classic and still one of the best books I've ever read on actually operationalizing sustainability in strategy. And I'm really proud and happy to tell you that Stu Hart is a friend of ours today and an advisor for us at Wholeworks. And he's awesome. And he just writes so clear. But one of the things that he wrote about in that book was on inclusive capitalism and the idea that there were, at the time, 7 billion people on the planet, and 4 billion of them lived at less than $2 purchasing power parity. And I had an awesome CEO that when we as a team read that book and looked at the base of the pyramid, she said to me, how is it that we can look to serve the base of the pyramid? We are not even coming close. And I had an awesome boss, Marie Eckstein, who said, even if people start spending a nickel a year, that's a whole lot of nickels, right? So that was a business impetus for us to go and say, how can we learn? How can we serve? And what we decided to do is we decided to put volunteer groups of people into underserved communities for a month. This is not vacation. It was work, but we
volunteers from your company.
Volunteers from our company, and we seconded them to nonprofit organizations and social enterprise. And for us at Dow Corning at the time, we worked in India. But of course, this was not something that I could do on my own because I didn't know anything about the base of the pyramid. Nobody at our company knew anything about the base of the pyramid. Nobody knew how to do inclusive capitalism. This is probably about 12 years ago. And I found a company that was doing that. And it was Pixera Global. And what Pixera Global does is they work with companies to help them understand and implement different programs on the ground in underserved communities. When I retired from Dow Corning, I was the vice president of corporate communications and relationships at Pixera Global. So I left. When I left Dow Corning, my first encore career was to go to Pixera Global in an effort to help other companies do the same thing. Pixera Global has gone on. They do global pro bono programs. They worked with JP Morgan Chase. Dow also started a program. They worked with SAP. They worked with any number of companies. Deirdre White, their CEO, remains a good friend of ours. She's also an advisor for Wholeworks. But that was an ability for us to get people on the ground to really understand and get the insight for innovation to drive the kind of change that you need to have if you're going to actually make a viable business or viable products for people in a completely different market. And I will tell you that one of the really cool things that happened to me in the last couple of years is, I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, but I happened to be watching the Dow Investor Day. So it was being streamed. I watched it on Dow Investor Day. And I saw an application that had been identified in that group as a way of producing a product that was needed for people who lived at the base of the pyramid. And it is now commercially available through Dow, through customers in India, which is like, that was like sort of like, oh, wow.
It's also very important. The concept of inclusive capitalism is also incredibly important and knowing how to market and educate the base of the pyramid on products that are already available that you may be marketing or getting to them in the wrong way. They don't understand the benefit. The benefit, you know, if you ever read Deep Dive, and I forget who wrote Deep Dive, but it was Procter and Gamble, a guy from marketing from Procter and Gamble. They failed all over the world in different areas of different things that they were trying to market, because the value systems were completely different, right?
Well, exactly. And it's a
they're trying
completely
to sell
different
it as a
business
health
model.
thing. They're trying to sell something as health in like sub-Saharan Africa. But what they discovered after years of failure was that it needed to be an opportunity for economic wealth, was actually the benefit of the product, that they never sold it that way before, right? It's incredibly strange.
Well, I think
cool.
what it has everything to do with is, will you put yourself into the position that will allow you to be on the ground,
right,
and to learn alongside and understand that?
How does that fold into Wholeworks? I got all kinds of questions, and obviously, I'm going to tell everybody here, Wholeworks. You talk about virtual. You don't learn it. Well, I was going to say this before, and I was going to be really cool about it, but I love the quote that you had on here about. I think it's on your website.
Yeah, is that the one from Anna Mueller-Weiss?
No. It's where is it?
But now I
there it is. Henry Mintzberg.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Henry Mintzberg once opined, leadership, like swimming, cannot be learned by reading about it. Right. And so, I mean, all the experiences that you had and everything that you did at Dow, and going into the deep dive, I'll use that term, to the bottom of the pyramid for the inclusive capitalism. How does all that stuff come into and then formulate this coursework that I'm gonna benefit from at Wholeworks?
All right.
So,
well,
real quick before
go
we
ahead,
get into
Emma.
In three words.
So real quick, I'm just going to say, so Wholework is a series of courses. I know we've been talking about education, just for those who are listening who might not know. What
so Wholeworks is a company.
And then into Michael's question.
Yeah. So Wholeworks is a company. Okay. And one of the things that Wholeworks does, and the thing that I spend most of my time doing, is we develop leadership programs that are around sustainable development. That's one of the main things that we do. Now, for 25 years, Wholeworks developed custom leadership development programs. That's how I met Wholeworks, because I already commented that I had been a part of a strategic leadership.
Not necessarily sustainable leadership program.
At that time, no.
All kinds of,
right. All kinds of
group dynamics, leading, storming, norming, performing, all that stuff.
And all whole system based to help leaders to understand how their organizations worked, and really importantly, how they created value. Okay. Now, fast forward that about 20 years, and about 5 years ago, with sustainability really on the rise, one of the things that I observed, because I had been on the board of directors of Net Impact, which is an organization that is a professional organization for people that I would characterize in the formative years of their careers that were really interested in making a sustainable difference. And what I kept seeing was young professionals basically flying into glass windows at their organizations. They were trying to implement sustainability, and they were just literally crashing and burning. And I looked at that and I thought, wow, what is happening here? And what was happening was that those people had no practice. They had academic rigor, they had knowledge, they had understanding, and they had no capability to practice. And with that, I went to Matt Mayberry and said, hey, I think there's an opportunity here for us to take the work that you've been doing for 20 years and manifest that into a publicly available leadership development course that will teach people how to integrate sustainability into their work. Now, what surprised me along the way is that it wasn't necessarily the early career people that benefited the most from it. It was actually people mid-career who already had responsibility for generating wealth and generating profit and operating businesses who were hungry and wanted greater purpose and an ability to integrate sustainability. So actually, with that insight, then, when we launched Leading the Sustainability Transformation, it's not that we don't allow young professionals to take part in it. We do. But our sweet spot is actually for people who have had 10 years of experience. And we routinely get people in their 50s and 60s to join our program.
And Laura, I just want to add, isn't it refreshing? And wasn't it really kind of like this? Yeah, like a really uplifting moment when you realize that type of stuff. Because when we first started Sustainiacs, I started working with OPT, Ocean Plastic Technologies, and reaching out to people who were interested in all this kind of stuff. I found so many people in the age demographic and the business demographic that you're talking about who are just like, yes, I've done all this stuff and I really want to do something that's impactful now. And are just so jazzed up about having that opportunity and learning. And they really just need to know, how do I get that done? How do I get involved?
Exactly. And that's the how-to that we make available with Leading the Sustainability Transformation. So it's essentially like, honestly, that product, which we run once a year, Leading the Sustainability Transformation, you can go to wholeworks.com. Hope you don't mind me saying that, Michael.
No, please. No, I want people. I want people.
Look at that. Yeah. And that is a 10-week boot camp. Now, when I say it's a boot camp, I don't want people to think, oh, I got to take 10 weeks off of work. No. We designed it for working professionals and leaders. Okay.
Yeah.
And in fact, we looked at that and said, wouldn't it be great if everybody could go back to school and get their MBA in sustainability? Yeah. But, most people aren't willing to take a mortgage-sized loan, nor are they in the ability, nor do they have the ability to leave family and professional responsibilities behind. So we developed a 10-week, very compact, very rigorous program, but people do that with their day jobs. Okay.
Cool.
And it's got 3 components, and the middle component is the thing that I think you might be the most interested in. So it does come with learning modules. All of this is completely virtual. We serve it up anywhere in the world where people can have Wi-Fi. So people do it from their home, from their offices, on the road. If they're doing business travel, wherever they are in the world, they can log in, and there are learning modules. And we've developed
Is this the LST program? Is that what we're talking
the
about?
Leading the Sustainability Transformation.
Okay.
Yep. So the first part that we do is we do learning, right? So every week people complete certain learning modules in about 15-minute chunks. We specifically designed it so that people can take a coffee break and do a module, or if you want to do all your modules on Saturday, it's fine. We don't care how you do it. But those learning modules are things that are self-serve. That's the learn part. The second part, and this is the part that's really unique to our program, is the practice piece. Yeah. And in the practice piece, you are part of a global team that we put together, and you are cast in a role of a fictional but highly realistic company, and you and your team have 20 years, 2 years per week, to transform that from a traditional manufacturing site to a sustainable bioproducts business. What are the decisions that you need to make?
So I'm reading about that, and it's what Profit Planet People, right? Is like the 3.
That's the triple bottom line, and you have to hit 30 goals, including generating wealth.
Yeah, well, most companies are not they're
not charities.
They're not charities. Well, and one of the reasons I love this is because I've always contended, and I think Emma agrees with me, is that it needs to be a capitalist solution in a sense, because the altruism of humans waxes and wanes, and so on and so forth, and you can't rely on that, otherwise it's going to die eventually because people get bored with something.
Well, you have to build the systems, right?
Yeah, you got to buy the infrastructure's got to be there, right?
Right, yeah. And that's what we're teaching people how to do. How do you build? How do you influence? How do you build sustainable systems and that return on investment, that meet environmental goals, that meet social goals, and actually also meet economic goals beyond the company? Because remember, companies do not exist in isolation. They all exist in systems of economy, society and environmentally. So we can't pull ourselves out of any of those things and pretend that we can be self-sufficient, because that is fallacy. It just doesn't work. But the practice piece is really, really important.
Yeah.
And it is so much harder to make the decisions and make the trade-offs, even when it's in fiction.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I bet.
It is, and it is, we know that simulation is second only to real life experience, and the stakes are too high for too many people to practice on real things, right? So that's why we want to have a practice field. And so people then practice that. And then the third thing that they do is they glean the things that they learn from the learning modules, they glean the things that they learn from their experience. And then they are responsible for developing a project plan that will be implementable inside of an organization once they leave our course.
Inside an actual, with actual
Correct.
Parameters for an actual organization. So
Correct.
you're kind of implanting that, well, virtually implanting them
Right.
into a company too. That is really, really cool.
And
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Em. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, like, if so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, as a young professional in the
Yep.
field, like, I'm trying to choose between all of the different environmental sustainability programs they have out there. Is this the big key thing that sets you guys apart? Like, is this the thing that people are seeking out, this type of real world experience, and how can that, I mean, you've explained it a little bit, but it's interesting to hear how it can benefit people to actually not just be learning it, but actually doing it as well, which is kind of relates back to the quote that Michael brought up before.
Right. And that's what we want to do. We want to give people like you a chance to practice it. And what's really interesting about the simulation is that to complete the certification program, you have to do all three aspects. You have to learn, practice, and apply. But here's the key. We want people to try things. We want people to innovate. So we do not penalize people for trying things and failing. We penalize people for not diving in. So one of the things that you have to do.
This isn't that group project where one person doesn't do anything, right?
Exactly. It's so funny that you would say that, Michael, because that is exactly right. The way that people pass the certification is that their teammates and facilitator assess them as a contributing member of the team. If you're not a contributing member of the team, then you don't pass the course.
Sweet.
If you totally blow something, it's been very interesting. We learn so much more from mistakes than we learn from successes. And what we want to do is we want to give people a safe place to make those mistakes.
Nice.
That's what we want to do.
Yeah, that's important.
And it's really important. And what you get there then is not only the intellectual understanding, which, by the way, there are a ton of executive education programs available that will give you the intellectual understanding. You also now have earned some emotional intelligence, because you know what? It's not just in your head. You have to be able to hold this stuff in your guts.
And I was going to bring that up. You're talking about how the stakes get really high, even in the simulation and the virtual of this. And that's where you start to learn that social interaction and how other parties are going to respond to this or that tactic or whatever it happens to be. That is so missing in academia. It's not even funny. Well, I guess it's more prevalent to learn that type of stuff in really the upper echelon of academia, right? I mean, this sounds like I'm going to Harvard for a course here, because this is how you learn at a school like that, right? You don't learn like this at a community college for the most part. You just study in a book.
I argue it's also like level of education as well. Like, not to jump in here, but like, I didn't really recognize how much different aspects of, I'm a science person, so I didn't recognize how many aspects of STEM went into every other aspect of STEM, and I didn't realize how much writing and how much history. Like, I also think, Michael, it's probably some level of that too, is like realizing that you can't just think of what's important to you. You need to think about what's important to everyone else. And And that just comes with more and increased education. Correct me if I'm wrong, Laura. That's
Well,
what my mind was immediately jumping
what
to.
you said, I don't know if it comes with more education or not, but what you've said, Emma, to be a successful professional is exactly right. Your ability to communicate, to attract resources, to get people to work together has everything to do with whether or not your knowledge on environmental science will get utilized. That's a really, really critical part of the program that we're putting here. And that's why we talk about leading the sustainability transformation. So leadership and sustainability is together two things that are really, really important. The other thing that we do in the simulation, so I'll just give you an example. Both of you can probably imagine it's a business simulation. Think of the roles that we would have. We've got a general manager. We've got a person who's responsible for sourcing. We've got a person who's responsible for operations. We got a person who's responsible for HR. We've got a person who's in charge of marketing and sales, right? You can imagine all of that.
Yeah,
Never, ever let anybody play their day job.
Okay, you got to be out of your comfort zone.
You got to be out of your comfort zone. And one of the best, and I will always remember this, one of the best exclamations I've ever heard in one of these team meetings was a research and development director from a fairly large multinational food company had been cast in the role of the marketing and sales vice president. And he made a crucial mistake in terms of how he set his marketing and sales strategy, and the team suffered for it because he had made this crucial mistake. And so as they were debriefing, he discovered it, he apologized. I think he was embarrassed. His team was supportive, but then he said, "Who knew marketing and sales would be this difficult?" Right?
Yeah,
PhD guy, right? And of course, everybody just roared. But there's a whole new appreciation for how the systems have to come together and how the systems have to work, and how, just exactly what you said, Emma, how are you able to appeal so that the answer that you're bringing solves multiple problems? And that's everything.
So
That's
Laura,
awesome.
based on that, do you think that you need to be a leader to make waves in terms of sustainability?
Well, that depends on what your definition of leader is. Okay. So I will argue that everyone should lead from their position of strength. And one of the things that we focus on in leading the sustainability transformation is, of course, we go through this whole simulation and people are cast as leaders in this fictional but highly realistic business simulation. But as we get close to the end of the course and we're helping people build the project plans that they're going to take with them from the course, we actually have a whole module on leading from where you stand. So, and we take a look, we go right back to Stephen Covey, bless his heart. He talked about the 7 habits of highly effective people. And right at the beginning of that book, he talks about the circle of influence and the circle of concern. And when you focus on your circle of influence and the things that you can do, you build out your circle of influence and you can lead from there. So no, we don't expect people to leave our organization and go tell the CEO what to do. We expect people to leave our course and understand where they can successfully impact systems. And frankly, if they cannot, and if they are in an organization that is completely closed to this idea, they now have an incredible education, an incredible experience, and a highly prized credential that equips them to go to organizations where they will be allowed to lead. And we have seen people do both.
Yeah, and that's and the thing is, if the organization is close to this concept of what's going on, they're not going to be around anyway. So you might as well leave and go somewhere else because I mean, it doesn't come down to can you make money or do this and be a sustainable company. It means do you want to be around in 15
Well,
years?
and Michael, that's a really, really good point because one of the things that I wrote about with Dr. Neil Hawkins, who's the former CSO of Dow, now the president of the Herb Foundation, and an advisor to Wholeworks and a very good friend. We wrote about this in Green Biz a couple of years ago, and we said, you know what? All businesses need to look at what do they need? All businesses need revenue.
Mhm.
All businesses need capital. All businesses need to manage risk. And here's a really key thing. All businesses need human resources. They
Yes.
need to be able to attract, engage, develop, and retain their people.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Having purpose, working in a sustainable space gives you street cred with people who want to come and work for you. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't pay, that you don't have to pay people. Now, you still have to pay people. You still have to be, but you can just look at it and say, what are you doing in terms of retention? What are you doing in terms of
Yeah.
attraction?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and paying attention to that means that in the talent war, you've got a leg up.
In a consumer war.
Yeah.
Because it's not just and it's interesting because it's not just millennials and the younger generations that are leading, that are in the 75, 80 percentile that will buy something that is sustainable over something that is not if they're given the choice, if they know that that's a choice they can make,
Mm-hmm.
right? They will do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Right.
It's also the baby boomers, which I'm right on the edge of. Right. It is the older generations that are also like, you know what, we got to do something here.
Which I
And
find
we'll
so
spend that.
interesting because like it's always marketed, I guess, as like the younger generations are coming in and telling the boomers what we have to do and all this stuff. And it's like, no, like this has been a problem for a while
No.
that people are
Yeah.
working on. Like, and I feel like as someone who's in like these younger spaces, it's like, oh, they don't understand. They don't believe in climate change. They don't think that sustainability is important. They don't believe in environmental social justice. And it's so interesting because when you actually get down to it, everybody is trying to place this emphasis on sustainability.
Well,
and
yeah. So I don't know if y'all are you familiar with the work of Catherine Hayhoe? Or do you know
I'm
who
not.
Catherine is?
I
Okay,
will.
Catherine is the Chief Science Officer of the Nature Conservancy, and she's best known for having written the book Saving Us, which is an awesome book. And her premise is this: the Earth will continue to circle the sun millions of years from now, whether we are here or not. We are not saving the Earth. We are saving us. And in her book, she talks about research that says, to your point, Emma, about climate change, that actually you shouldn't talk about whether people believe in climate change or don't believe in climate change because it's actually not yes or no. It's actually a spectrum, right? And what she says is there are about 7% that are hardcore climate deniers. Ignore them. Talk to the 93.
Yeah.
That's the critical part. The other thing that Catherine says, which I love about her, is that there is no silver bullet, but there is a lot of silver buckshot. So what is everyone doing to do what they can, going back to how do you lead from your circle of influence, lead from where you stand, and make, if everybody made one positive step towards a more just and sustainable world, we would all be much better off.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's when when we're doing leading the sustainability transformation, I will tell you, I have people come who have never done anything in sustainability. And I have people who come who have actually pioneered things in sustainability. And in our program, because of the whole system aspect and the simulation, they have an opportunity to take their game to a level higher. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get everybody, one step closer to sustainability because we believe that that is a way to make the world a more just and sustainable place.
Awesome. That is awesome stuff.
Sure.
There's one question that I need to get in before we run out of time is because I'm really interested in the fact that I'm from the logistics industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 35 years in logistics. And I keep making the argument, and I've been making it for a number of years now. Everybody in logistics is so concerned about emissions, and that's their sustainability goals, going after emissions. And I contend that if you are a logistics company and you're not producing engines, you just use them, you're not doing anything with emissions just because you're buying trucks that have lower emissions. The truck manufacturers are doing that. And there's a lot of other things that they could be involved in for sustainability. To that point and to other points, regardless of where you're at, who should be involved with this? I mean, should they look at it as like, okay, we're trying to reduce emissions, or we're trying to reduce the amount of plastics, or we're trying to build everything out of natural fibers, or we're trying to do this, or we're trying to do that, or we're planting a tree for every time somebody books a load with us? Who comes here and how do they do? Is it just, you see what I'm saying? Is there specialized verticals, or does that even matter?
Well, so the answer is, of course, yes, all of that matters. Okay. But let me just say this. One of the things, this is where Catherine makes the point of, it's not one thing. It's got to be a strategic approach. And how will you intervene inside of the system in your organization and in your industry? So one of the things that we want people to understand is that it's not just focused on, again, I'm going to talk about environmental, social, and governance, ESG issues. It's not like just, I'm going to focus on ESG. It's what are the material ESG initiatives that you need to focus on for your industry because they're important for your industry. So let me just give you, a quick example. If you've got a multinational consulting firm, and they tell you that the thing that they're going to focus on is recycling plastics in their offices, do you think that's the most important thing that they could do to advance sustainability? No.
Probably not.
Well, of course not, right? It's like, it's incidental. The thing that they could focus on is two things. They could probably focus on, now that we've all, survived COVID, they could say, we're able now to provide services in a way that reduces our need to travel by air 80%. And so we're reducing our environmental footprint that way. That's just an example. But if you went to someplace like Dow, and Dow said, well, what we're going to focus on in the circular economy is, recycling all of the paper in our offices, you would laugh at that. But if they said, we're going to invest in a circular economy for plastics, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, why?
That actually makes sense.
Because that actually makes sense. So when you're focusing on, as you've just mentioned here, there's emissions has gotten the huge play because, like the air we breathe and the climate that it creates.
Yeah,
and
greenhouse gas.
NOx. Just life. Right?
Yeah, in general, life in general.
In general. So, so emissions are really important, but there's two other aspects that are emerging in increasingly importance. And I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear that they're water and biodiversity, right?
Yes.
We just got it. Water, land, atmosphere. That's right. That we just now gave the kindergarten version of ecosystems, but it's good that we remember that all the things are important that we learned in kindergarten, right? Yeah. So what you're seeing now is right now, carbon, because that's a shorthand for greenhouse gas and emissions, it has everybody's attention. But just at the end of November, there was a pretty important United Nations conference that ended with a treaty for biodiversity. So my friend Margaret O'Gorman, who is there says, biodiversity is the next carbon. By the way, we can't live without fresh water either. Okay. So all of those things have an impact. So when you say, Michael, logistics providers are all focused on emissions, I would say, okay, yes, maybe. But to me, it's like, what are your material issues? Are they emissions? Are they water? Are they biodiversity? Because you might find that, and I'm totally making this up, but you might find somebody in working for a company that has a living supply chain where biodiversity is incredibly more important and more material to how they actually move the product.
Right.
Okay.
So the way that's where is your company is teaching people how to think about sustainability.
Yeah.
Not necessarily teaching them exactly what to do, but you're showing them how to be a thought leader in the sustainability space for whatever issues are the most important for
Gotcha.
Right. And to think about it strategically. And I do want to say, and showing them examples of how it is that you would deal with that. So in the simulation, you actually do have to make decisions, but they're examples. And then that's where we come into, and now you need to apply it for your company. And when we give them the assignment to apply it to their company, they get 8 rounds of feedback from us. Right?
Oh, wow.
So they also get personal coaching. And that's, and that's really, that's the thing. And it's like, one of the things that I know, Emma, with your environmental science background, one of the things that I imagine that you're terrifically interested in is the whole idea around green infrastructure and natural infrastructure. And that is growing in huge leaps and bounds for cities and for companies. So, but how do you get people to translate that into value? That's a key point. And that's one of the things that we want to help people. That's an example of one of the things that we help people do.
That's so cool.
That is awesome stuff. Yeah. Listen, we're going to have to come back and talk some more because we're closing in on an hour already. And I mean, and I could listen to you talk and have this conversation forever.
I still have like 1,000 questions. I feel like
I do. We're going to have to have a part 2.
Well, I would love a part 2 because what I want to tell you guys is leading the sustainability transformation. We'll run that January 30th to April 9th in 2023. The registration deadline is January 20th. But the really exciting thing is that in the spring of this year, we are also going to launch a 6-week course in strategic ESG in creating sustainable value. So it's going to be a simulation. It's going to be a different simulation. It's going to be a shorter program, and we would love the opportunity to come back and talk to you about that. We'll be launching the registration for that at the end of January, and our first cohort in that product will be leaving May 1st. When I say leaving, like you're at home, but the program will start May 1st, and it will end on June 11th.
They're locked in a room for 6 weeks.
No, they are not. They get to do it from wherever they want.
It's like the biodome. They have to live in a small hut just outside of
No. And the thing that I think is really cool is before COVID, we launched this we designed this to be completely virtual and accessible anywhere in the world because this work cannot be only the work of people of privilege.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if you require an MBA for $150,000, that discludes tremendous numbers of people, and we need a lot of people to do this work. And so we had one person complete our course in 10 weeks. She started in Washington, D.C. in her office. She had a week of vacation in Japan. She ended up in Nigeria on a business trip, and she did not lose a step. It was pretty cool.
That's perfect. That's awesome. So you're going to tell us now exactly where people can get in touch with you guys. If you want to get in touch with us, the sustainiacs@gmail.com. Send them for questions or anything, even for Laura. And we'll save them for the next time as what we'll do, because we're definitely having a part 2. And you can look me up at Michael Vincent on LinkedIn, or Sustainiacs on LinkedIn, or Vincent the Dude on Twitter, or Sustainiacs on Twitter. Sustainiacs. Just look up Sustainiacs or Michael Vincent. You find me. I'm all over the place, and I'm posting constantly. Emma, I know they can find you as well.
Emma_Sustainiacs. Just search Sustainiacs and we'll come up. There's no shortage. You'll be able to find us wherever you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, Do it. Give us the commercial, and then you're going to send me links and all that other kind of stuff where they can register and do all that stuff. So I'll have all that stuff with the promotions and all kind of stuff. But
awesome. So wholeworks.com, all one word, wholeworks.com, or you can find us on Twitter at Wholeworks. You can find us in LinkedIn at Wholeworks, and you can find me. I'm Laura Asiala, CSR on Twitter, and Laura Asiala at Wholeworks on LinkedIn.
Absolutely perfect. Hey, thank you so much, Laura. Sorry I called you Lori. It is Lori Asiala. I did the whole thing together perfectly.
Wow.
I just want you both to admit that I got that correct.
You got it. And Michael and Emma, it has just been such a pleasure, a privilege, and an honor to talk with both of you. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate your work as well. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, we'll keep doing it then. We'll keep doing it. Hey, peace and love, everybody.
All right.